Grid. Today I've got Nathan Turner from Calgary. Thank you, Nathan, for joining the Income Flip.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man. This is going to be an exciting conversation. One, because I want to learn more about notes, truthfully, right?
Yeah.
And two, when you and I were getting to know each other a little bit beforehand, you believe in the power of networking, right? And Grid, our investment community, is all about the power of networking. We say the power is in the network, right? And that's why we called it. That's why we called it Grid, right? Plug into the power of the network.
Absolutely.
And so, as is customary on the Income Flip, I love to unpack the story of the entrepreneur to figure out how did you end up in the vertical that you've decided to specialize in and become an expert in.
Right.
And so let's go back. You've been in this business now 15 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, 15 years. It's been a good long while.
How did you get into the wonderful world of notes?
And it's really interesting. I was talking with a colleague of mine just earlier this week, actually, and we were talking about how most people that get into notes get there by accident. It's rare that somebody seeks it out and decides that that's what they want to do. Usually you hear about it in an off conversation or maybe a podcast or something like that, but most people stumble into it. I was no different. I was doing fix and flip way back when, 2005, 6, and into 2007. And I could tell there was a change was coming. I could tell, I could just feel it in my bones. There was a change coming. So I was trying to complete all these flips as quickly as I could. And of course I got stuck with one property. So at the time, all I know is real estate.
Nathan, you got lucky.
Yeah, I did.
Preparation and luck, right?
Right.
Man, I had friends get stuck with lots of houses.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I just had that one house. So I rented it out because, of course, that's what you do, right? If you've got a house and it's not selling, then you rent it. So I was doing that. I'm up in Canada. At the time, I was living in Montreal and flipping houses in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So it's a small, technically a city, about 200,000 people. Smack dab in the middle of the prairies. If you go like eastern Montana, straight up, you'll hit nothing but prairies, farming, not much else. And that's where I was flipping houses.
Oh my God.
Small enough that I found one guy in town that was willing to be a property manager for a single family house. He was awful. He was terrible to deal with just because every single month, by about the 15th or 20th, I call him up and be like, hey, so did we get paid? Like, what's the deal? Where are we at? Oh, yeah, we're good. He's, payments here. I just got to do some accounting. I'll send it out to you. So I'd get payments somewhere between the 20th and 25th of the month, even though payment came in on like the 3rd or something. And so I was like, I don't know. I'm not sold on this idea. That was the first thing. And then, anytime somebody moves out of the house, it was cheaper for me to fly out with my suitcase full of tools, sleep on the floor, fix up the house, and then go back home. Like it was ridiculous.
The cost of turnover, it like kills you in a property.
Yeah, and in a small city with a small house in a not so nice neighborhood, and so it was tough. And you don't know what you don't know, and so that was where I got started, and that was my experience. But I was like, I'm not sure about this landlording thing. I don't get it. I don't know why people do this. So fast forward a little bit. I ran into a friend of mine, also from Calgary. He had moved down to California. He met up with a group of investors down there. They had bought a portfolio of properties in April of 2007. So like the very top of the market, just before everything started going south. It was supposed to be a quick flip. They were supposed to buy these 60 properties, mostly in the Midwest, flip it out to another group, and then of course that didn't happen. So fall of 2008, they're going, what do we do? And they brought us on board, just say, do what you can. We understand we're going to lose money, but do the best you can, and we'll pay you whatever we can out of it. So 60 properties that I had power of attorney over, zero operating budget.
Why? But Nathan, why did they choose you? Like, what value did you bring to them? I'm curious.
Part of it was they had heard my story about doing the fix and flip. So I was still in Montreal at the time. The houses were in the Midwest, but they're out in California. So just proximity, I was closer. And they'd heard my story about flying across the country with my suitcase full of tools. And they're like, this guy's
They're
gonna
like, this guy's a go-getter. He's gonna go.
So that was it. That was, you know, I was willing to just get in there and go. We were just selling another business at the time, and so I had time on my hands. So that was fine. So I would go down and I drove hours and hours and hours to go
You
and
were
see
the
it.
fixer. You were essentially the fixer.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then my friend and I, we thought we'd invented seller financing. It's not done in Canada, so it's not something we're familiar with. But we're like, instead of trying to rent these because we don't have money to fix them up, let's just sell them as is, with the understanding that the person living in the house is going to make monthly payments equal to or less than local rent, but they're responsible for the upkeep of the property. And we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Let's do that. So that was it. And then later I learned, oh, that's called seller financing. Yeah, lots of people do that. I'm like, oh, so we're not quite as smart as we thought we were, but that's cool. That's all right. But that was the start. And started
But then
doing.
when you started marketing that, I'm sure your phone rang off the hook.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I would drive. So I would rent a car. I had a vinyl cutting machine, and so I would cut out the sign and take it down with me and stick it on the car that said "Own a house for less than rent" with my phone number. And yeah, just driving around town, people would call me up and say, "Yeah, where is it? I'll have a look." So in that sense, it worked. On the other hand, these were really rough properties. They needed a lot of care and attention. These guys were in there for a deal, which is great, with the intention of fixing it up, but most of the time they didn't. And they're not what you'd call your best borrowers. Dodd-Frank wasn't a thing back then, and so we didn't qualify anybody because we didn't know any better more than anything else.
You're like, take it.
Yeah.
You're were you getting some kind of like option up front? Or was it just like, no, you go in, you just start paying whatever the monthly was? Like, I guess there was no skin in the game for them to walk away if they wanted to.
Very
walk away.
little.
Okay.
Like our down payment was first and last month's rent. Like we were very much catering to the rental people, and so that was our kind of our tag, right? If it was $400 a month, move in for $800 as your down payment, and then start paying $400 a month. And then we split that up with principal and interest. We figured out that much. So we were creating these notes, but not really knowing that's what we were doing, not really knowing the paperwork behind it, how to do that properly, how to vet your borrowers.
So Nathan, you were actually transferring deed at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. It depended. There were a couple of states where we transferred deeds. Other states, we just did it as a contract for deed.
Contract for deed.
Ohio and Michigan, they call it a land contract, same thing. So in that case, we didn't have to transfer the deed. We would just do a note without actually doing the deed transfer. So in case of default, it was much easier to get back the property.
Did you end up taking the majority of those back?
Some, not too many. It actually worked relatively well. The big eye opener to me was looking for a back end. And we were saying, okay, so I know you can sell a turnkey rental. What about what we're doing, where we're selling it and then the borrower, the person living in the home, is actually responsible for the upkeep? Surely that's better than a turnkey rental. And so doing some research, trying to figure out if there's some kind of back end market for this, sure enough, found a guy in Texas talking about buying seller finance notes. And I was like, oh, is that what they're called? And went down to his class, figured out that's what we were doing, figured out how to do it way better than what we were currently doing, and then figured out, yes, there is a back end. There's a whole network of people that are buying and selling notes all over the place. And I was like, really, that's a thing? I went to my first conference, 2009. I went, no way, there's 200 people here all doing what I just learned about, and fantastic. So that was my introduction, and went from there.
Awesome. No, I love that. So that initial 60 properties led you to the business that you have today? Is did you say, okay, I'm going to make this a thing? And then what did that thing actually look like? Right.
Yeah. And it's been an evolution. At the beginning, again, I came from real estate. So my mindset was still acquire the real estate. So we, at the time, go back 2009, 2010, it was really easy to buy up homes all over the place. And so we decided to concentrate on Columbus, Ohio. That was going to be our market. Started buying up either, dilapidated houses that needed work, or I would buy kind of the, again, ding moment for me was started buying non-performing notes on vacant properties so that I could acquire the property. And the whole idea was get the property and then fix it up, resell it. This time we were going to actually fix it up, resell it on terms, create another note, and then sell the note, which again worked fairly well. It wasn't a smashing success, but yes, it worked. The concept with it was there, and that was the framework. And again, just kind of started building off of that. The further I've gone along, the further I've thought, why am I trying to get the house? The house is a lot more work. So, especially with the non-performers, then I started looking for properties that were actually occupied so that I can go back to that homeowner and say, okay, so you're not making payments now. What's the issue? What can we do to help you get back on track? And as the note holder, now I'm the bank. So then I say, okay, you can't do $600 a month. Could you do $500 a month? And to do that, we're going to stretch out your amortization back out to 30 years. Maybe you were at 20 years left on the loan. We'll stretch it back out, lower the payment so that you can make it more affordable for you. And they're all over that. They're happy to do that, be able to stay in the home and just keep living. And we've done that hundreds of times, and that was a lot of fun.
So Nathan, so did you find like the evolution of all of this? Have you found that is the most gratifying? Maybe that's also the easiest. You can scale it because it doesn't really require you to do any kind of like physical fix and flipping kind of work. Is that the thinking behind it?
Yes. And then there's a market shift again where now the economy is actually doing much, much better than it was compared to 2010, 11, 12. So again, the shift is now I'm buying performing notes where people are making regular payments. So talk about lazy. That's then I don't have to negotiate anything. I don't have to try to help them get back on track. They're already on track. They're already doing what they should be doing. But I've got all the experience of what happens if that I bring with me now. So that's wonderful. So if there is an issue, I'm well equipped to take care of it.
Give people examples of why somebody would sell a performing note.
Somebody who's got an extra property. There's a couple of situations. Mostly I'm buying seller finance notes now. So this is where an individual, maybe a family, they've inherited a house or they've acquired it somehow, left to them in a will, whatever. Somehow they've acquired this extra property. They know about seller financing. They've sold it on terms so that they don't have to take care of the house. Person living in the house has to do that. Now they're at a point where something has come up, either another business opportunity, they got to send a kid to college, they've got a giant renovation they want to do, they want to buy a boat, who knows, whatever it is. They want a lump sum of cash today versus those payments over time. So that's where I come in and I say, look, I'll give you that lump sum, and then I will take over those monthly payments, receiving those monthly payments. So now I become that bank again, so that the payments, instead of going to whoever it was before, are now coming to me. So really, what it boils down to is they're looking for that lump sum of cash.
Yeah. And so what's the target there? Is it 80 cents on that performing note? Is it 70 cents on that performing note? Like what is it 90? Like what's kind of like a rule of thumb for somebody who's listening to this?
That's a great question, and it really comes back to the heart of what note investing is, because we're not buying real estate. And that's what I had to get my head around, is I'm not buying real estate. I'm buying the financing. The real estate just happens to be the collateral. So it's real estate related, but it's not real estate. So what that means is I'm looking at the numbers behind involved in the loan. So to say 70%, 80%, 90%, you can't actually do that. You have to look at what's the interest rate,
amortization schedule, all that. Mm-hmm.
You have to break it down that way so that you can say, okay, for example, if this was a loan written in 2021 at 3 or 4%, I need at least a 12% yield. So my discount is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be huge for me to get to that 12. If it's a seller finance note that was written at 10%, my discount's a lot smaller. And so we're going to be able to make a deal just because of the numbers that you've had in place already.
Yeah, it's the inverse, right? Like it's those lower note payments that you're like, okay, well, I need a bigger discount because I've got to now pay for this. Well, you're going to get payments of 3.5% or 4%, and
Right.
and really what you want is a 12%. You that's the target for you, is a 12% yield, right?
That's for me,
Compounded
yeah.
over time. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And so you're doing this mainly in the Midwest still?
I
All over.
it's interesting. It's really based on the numbers. So it tends to be kind of on the eastern half of the country, north to south. Michigan to Texas, everything else in between. That's mostly where they happen to be. I had notes in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, some of those western states, but they're much more rare. I like to focus on balances under 250,000, so that tends to be somewhere on the eastern half.
Florida?
Florida, absolutely, yeah. Carolinas,
Tennessee.
Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, yeah.
Got it. Good to know. Okay, cool. So you're giving us your buy box essentially,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so the big question is, like, where do you find these notes? How does that come about? Is there like a marketplace for notes? Right, I'm sure there is. But tell me, how do you go about finding these notes? What's your system for that?
All right, so marketplace, yes, there is. So I'll give a shout out to my guys over at PaperStack. So if you want to just look at loans that people have for sale, anybody can go and list a loan for sale on PaperStack. Actually, just yesterday, I closed on a loan that I had listed there. So it works really well. It's PaperStack with no K on the end.com. Go check them out. They're great guys. That's probably the most popular. That's going to be the easiest place to go find some. The secret is it's all about networking. It's all about just talking to people and finding out who has notes for sale, who's buying, and then connecting. So again, going back to conferences, that's essential, is just getting out there and talking to people.
Nathan, I would imagine that a place to go fishing would be self-directed IRA companies events, right? Like, because a lot of people probably have lent. The reason why I'm saying this is because I have, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've taken my self-directed IRA money and created notes,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes you're like, shoot, I want to liquidate this note. How do
Yeah.
I go about liquidating this note? Right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
paperstack.com is an option. Meeting somebody like you, Nathan, is another option, right? You probably market yourself out there that you're a note buyer, right?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you created a fund, though, essentially, to do this, right?
Right.
So let's talk about the evolution of that. How did that come about?
So the evolution is interesting because starting in about 2015, I started partnering up with individual investors. And then we were just doing like a joint venture, splitting profits on non-performing loan purchases. That's great, and it worked really well. The challenge is, because they're JVs, we have to keep everyone's money separate. We have to keep all the accounting separate. Like, two people can't join in and buy one note together with me in the middle. That's not allowed. That's an SEC violation. We can't do that. So I had to keep everyone's money all totally separate. So that's administratively, that's heavy. That's a lot. One of the other things that was annoying to me was just because I had to keep everyone's money separate, then I'd have little leftover bits for all my different investors. So I've got 10,000 here, 15,000 over there, 20,000 over here. Collectively, at one point, I looked at it and we had like $250,000 sitting on the sidelines doing nothing because they're all too small to do anything with. But I can't combine them because we aren't licensed to do that. So started looking at things like that. Just before COVID hit, we had, I think it was 23 individual investors. So on the administration side, my wife and I work together, and she's the one that does a lot of that not all, but a lot of that administrative stuff. And that poor woman, she was going crazy. Every quarter, she's having to pull numbers together and get everything together for 23 different sets of reports. And it was extremely time consuming, and just took up, she'd work on that solid for an entire week just to get these reports out. And then it would take me another 2 days to write, to put it together on my computer, write the emails, and then, have any follow-up conversations, things like that. So it was taking up quite a big chunk of our time just doing that. So that was really the catalyst where we started looking at, there's an easier way to do this. We've kind of avoided it for a while, and stuff was working, and so don't fix what ain't broke. That was kind of the idea. But during COVID, we're like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's have a look. How can we do this more effectively? How can we do this more efficiently? So the fund was the answer for us. Put that together. It's a Regulation D 506C fund, so it's for accredited investors. Anybody can put their money in. Now it is one big pool, and I can go out and buy whatever loans I want, whatever I can find that fits the criteria of the fund itself. Spreads out the risk across everybody, spreads out ownership over everything. And so, if you've got an investor that has 3 notes, well, if one of those goes bad, that's not great. In this case, we're talking about a pool of like 100 notes. If one of those goes bad or 10 of those goes bad, nobody feels it because we've got enough other stuff going on. It's fine.
So you've dollar cost averaged the notes essentially, right?
Basically,
You've
yeah.
spread your risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a question on that, Nathan, I think somebody listening might say to themselves, well, okay, you're going to go raise capital for this.
Right.
But now you got to deploy the capital. Like as soon as you raise the capital, are you paying on that money straight off the bat to your investors?
We
and
are.
Does it, yeah. And it could it force you to make bad note buying decisions because you're like, I need to deploy this capital, right?
Yeah.
And so that's always been a concern of ours.
Sure.
And how do you mitigate against that?
So over time, I've gone to a lot of conferences. I've done a ton of networking. I've got really good deal flow. So, and it's continuing to grow, in fact, through this conference. But that's definitely a concern, and that was one of our major debates when we were looking at putting it together. Is I don't want to have pressure and have to buy something that's junk just to get money out there. Thankfully, that has not been an issue. There's so much supply out there, and then over time we've created such good relationships with enough different people that depending, if I get money in today, I've got 5 different people I can go and approach and say, hey, what have you got for sale? Somebody's going to have something that's going to fit the amount of money that I've just acquired.
And Nathan, is it just you and your wife, or do you have other operational support to assist you with this?
So we run the ship, and then we've got local realtors, we've got local attorneys, we've got servicing companies, all of the different vendors that we need to count on for this, that, and everything else.
Got it. So it's a W-2 or light, type of enterprise.
Right.
And you've got contractors and bird dogs and agents and investors and, that are bringing you everything that you need. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
cool. I like that. And you could do it from anywhere in the world. You could be in Calgary, right? And you could be buying notes in Ohio, which is like, you could be in Hawaii, which is to beg the question, why are you in Calgary when you could be in anywhere else? Not, I've never been to Calgary, so I don't know, right?
No, honestly, it's a beautiful spot. We're just outside the Rocky Mountains, and it's, close to an airport, and I didn't need to fly. I never have to go and look at these properties, but it's nice to have an airport nearby if I want to go somewhere. We looked, and just, it's become much more of a lifestyle thing, and I can go to the mountains anytime I want, and I do, and it's really fun, and so, yeah, it works.
So obviously you don't mind the cold weather.
No, and it's funny, we're in springtime now, and so it's up and down, up and down. Yesterday we were about 65 degrees. Currently we're sitting at about 35. So Okay. Fascinating. So how many, a couple questions come to mind then. When you raised your initial tranche of capital, right, you were probably cautious. You were like, okay, well, I'll raise
you know, X amount? Like, how much did you raise in the beginning to make sure that you could digest it? And it probably gave you confidence that, hey, we have more deal flow than we could actually handle. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious for those listening.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So before setting up the fund, again, we debated a lot about that. At the time we decided to change things over, we had about 3.5 million under management. So we decided, again, running those numbers, doing performing instead of non-performing. 5 million is pretty good. It's manageable. It means that I don't have to hire extra staff. And then as we've fine-tuned our processes, now we're actually expanding that out to 10 million. And again, great. And that's very manageable. We can still handle that on our own without having to get an office and staff and all those things. So that's it. So it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. It's not 50 million, it's not 100 million, it's 10 million, which we can handle, which is great.
That's fantastic. So if somebody wanted to build a business like this, what are some of the operational challenges, or what are some of the things that they would have to put in place to execute that play?
First things first, make sure you get some education. Like I say, this is not real estate, and that took me a while to kind of get my head around. But it's not real estate. It's real estate related. The real estate is the collateral, and we are interested in the real estate. We do homework on the real estate, but it's not the same thing. So it's all the financing. It's much more of a finance game, and so make sure you understand how the note game works versus that. And that's not a pitch. I don't sell coaching or anything like that. It's that important. I can steer you in the right direction if you'd like, but that's not going to be me. That's going to be somebody else.
Nathan, let's talk about your conference. Well, actually,
Sure.
I don't want to interrupt that train of thought, so I'll let you finish, and then we'll talk about your conference. Okay.
Well, and that's my first piece of advice to anybody is make sure you get educated on this, because it's not the same thing. So there's different rules, there's different processes, there's different things that you have to know and understand before you get going in notes. So I would leave it at that. Just get educated first, then we'll talk.
Okay. Nathan, and again, just out of curiosity in this, are you using a third-party servicer to service those notes, or are you doing it yourselves?
I use third party.
Yeah. I like the insurance of a third party taking care of all that stuff. Cool. Awesome. So let's pivot to the powers in the network, right?
Yes.
You took over a conference, essentially,
Yes.
all about note buying.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Where do you hold a conference? Is it virtual? Is it physical? Why would somebody want to get involved? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, sure. So this was a conference. It had been running for 6 years, and I was approached by the previous owner. And her husband lived in a RV, and they traveled all over the continent, actually, and said, "Hey, I don't think this fits with my lifestyle." And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right." And my first, she said, "Are you interested in taking this over?" And I said, "Absolutely, yes, 100%. I'm in." By the way, what's it cost? By the way, does it make any money? By the way, like those were all secondary because it's all about the networking. And I've been speaking at conferences since 2015, and that has really elevated my business. In my mind, the only thing better than that is to actually run the conference. And so that was, to me, an automatic yes. Everything else was secondary. So that's been huge. The next one is coming up May 2nd and 3rd. So it's just around the corner. I don't know if this is going to air before then, but May 2nd and 3rd in
Maybe.
Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah.
Oh, in Nashville.
Wanted
That's cool.
something.
I've got an office in Knoxville, Tennessee. Maybe I'll send my Knoxville guys to go listen to it.
Would love that. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, we'd love that. I wanted something central. When I was living in Montreal, going out to Vegas or California with a 3-hour time difference was brutal. So I wanted something either central time zone or mountain time zone where nobody's more than 2 hours off their schedule. We want to be fresh. We want to be sharp when we're talking to each other. So that was a big part of it. Axe throwing has been a big part of it. We do an axe throwing tournament the night before the conference starts so that you can start to meet people before the conference even begins, so that you can start making those connections right away, so that when day one starts, you're like, "Oh, hey, how are you doing? It was good to see you last night," and you can start right out the gate and get going.
Nathan, is this a smaller conference, 200 people, 100 people, or is it a big conference, 5,000 people, 10,000? Like, what is it?
It's about 200. Last year we had 225. Numbers aren't in for this year yet. I don't know, but I figure it'll be somewhere around the same, around 250, somewhere in there.
Okay, it's awesome. You know what's so cool about this is that I want to double click on the fact that building a community, because that's what it is, right, is such an unbelievable lead generation tool, but also just a great tool to meet other amazing humans that become your friends, that become your business partners, which is why we launched Grid throughout the country.
Yeah.
And what those individual chapters do is give those leaders in the chapter a platform. And when that leader has a platform, they are the resident expert of investments in that market.
Yeah.
And what that does is that then attracts deal flow to you, money to you, talent to you, right?
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
and so you've done that within your space, right? And
Yeah.
it's a very cool play that some people execute, but putting on it's not easy, right? Putting on events is work, but it's all work. Right?
It's all, yeah.
It's all work.
It's a ton of work. Like we run it that first weekend in May. We're planning and like starting, sending out emails, even save the date, all those things back in September. So it's a good 9-month run just in the planning. So we get about 3 months off in between where we don't have to think about it too much. But really, September, we're starting all over again and off we go.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you, man. That's awesome. Is there a website where somebody can go to go check it out?
Yeah, it's called Diversified Mortgage Expo. So diversifiedmortgageexpo.com, that's the place to go. All the information is there. We've got the schedule up there. We've got, everything you need to know. That's the place.
That's fantastic. So all the notes are backed by real estate. Are you doing first and seconds and thirds, or just first? Or tell me a little bit about your profile there, or maybe just
Yeah.
Maybe again, it just goes back to looking at the whole thing and determining what you want to do.
It's very much up to the individual. I like first. That's just been my bread and butter. I really like that. But first can include mortgages. It can include deeds of trust, contracts for deed, land contracts, agreements for deed, bond for deed. All those are kind of the same thing. But anything with the first lien. So I want to make sure that I'm in first position. That's a personal preference. We've actually got one of our panels at this conference is called Seconds Dash Worth a Second Look. And so we've got their seconds experts, and they're talking about why they like seconds and why they think that they come first, right? And so that's an interesting spin on things. I've got a friend who he's out in California, he buys all over the country. He'll buy like a third or a fourth, and he just is cleaning up with that, and he'll send updates on success stories, and we're like, Gabe, you did it again. Son of a gun. But it's great, good for him.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, I think I've got the gist of if somebody wants to get involved, they can go to they can go look at the conference. But are there any other resources that you might recommend where somebody could go learn the game? Because you said before, like, hey, go study, go learn the game first, right?
Yeah.
Who do you recommend? What do you recommend?
Yeah. Two things. I would go. I've got two websites. So Diversified Mortgage Expo is for the conference. For notes and my fund, it's earnestinvesting.com. That's a good one. And then there are a number of different podcasts out there. One that I do with a colleague, it's called Real Estate Notes Show. And we do it as a Facebook Live, and then it flows from there. So it goes on to LinkedIn, and it goes on to YouTube, and onto Spotify, and wherever, all those different places. But the Real Estate Notes Show, we've been doing that 3 years now. So we've got a whole bunch of episodes on there. We bring on guests that teach us things all the time. We do it every other week. We've got one coming up this Friday, in fact. But tons and tons of content on there if you want to start diving.
I love that. I think that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Nathan, what haven't I asked you that you think would be an important question to ask, either for somebody wanting to invest in notes or wanting to invest in your fund, or just about you, right? Just you as a human being, right? Like, we didn't go in that. Like, are you married? Do you have kids? Well, yes, you're married. I know that, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do you have kids? Do you have dogs? Like, all
Yeah.
that good stuff.
Married, got 3 kids. They're a little bit older now, 15, 17, 19. All 3 of them are actually coming out to our conference this year to be our slave labor, to be our runners for this, that, and everything else.
Yes.
Which is great. We had our middle daughter came out last year. She was the only one available, but this year all 3 of them are coming. So that's going to be awesome. And
Cool.
keep it in the family. My oldest daughter, she's like, I'm looking forward to this because I know what you do, but I don't really know what you do, so I'm interested in learning more. Perfect. Finally. I've been trying to get you interested for years, but okay, fine, good. But yeah, I love going to the mountains. I love snowboarding. I love hiking. It's just a good life, and I want to build the whole idea of everything I'm doing now is the 5-year plan. So that when my youngest is moving out of the house in 5 years from now, I want to be completely self-sufficient. So meaning, I don't have to have investors at that point. We're self-funded. Everything that we're buying is all done in-house. Not to say I'll shut out all investors at that point, but I'll have that option, and that's what I'm looking for. To me, that's retirement, where I don't have to have
just fun.
Not working for anybody else.
Yeah. It's like, it's like early on Warren Buffett was like, I'll take your money, but here are the rules, right? Like,
Yeah.
I make the rules. You don't talk back. You don't question. He was like, I will do that, right? So he had that early in his life, right? And people were like, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, right? He built that track record up. But you'll get to that where you're just like, I get to work with my choice people,
Yeah.
right? And you've got the majority of your money in the fund, right?
Right.
And so people are gonna, you'll probably at that point raise way more capital than you'll ever want because people are
Probably.
okay.
Yeah.
It's weird, right? It's like it reverses psychology.
But then
Awesome, man.
kids are out of the house. If they're living somewhere else and we want to go visit, great. If we want to go, do this or that and the other, go to Hawaii at that point, sure. And spend a month out there just 'cause. Why not?
Well, Nathan, I appreciate you sharing time on the income flip, right? I could see listeners, there's going to be a segment of listeners that are like, I just want to invest and give somebody like Nathan, money and get a reoccurring revenue from that. And by the way, what's your typical, percentage that you offer investors?
We do an 8% annual return, quarterly distributions, and that's lawyer says I'm not allowed to use the word guarantee, but we pay 8%. The way that we're set up, the way that we're structured, it would be difficult not to. It's just what we do. So it's minimum 50,000 investment. Most people invest usually around 100. I think the average is like 125, and just can be IRA money, it can be cash on hand, whatever you've got available. But love to work with people that way.
Okay, awesome. So an 8% annualized return paid quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you do quarterly calls, or is it just like quarterly check? Do you do like quarterly investor calls or anything like that? Newsletter?
We do a newsletter.
Okay.
We've been toying with the calls. We could do that. I'm not opposed to it. That's fine. We'll see. Sure.
Yeah. Don't take on more work, as I'm saying. I'm just wondering if you do it. Okay. Well, Nathan, I appreciate it. I think there's going to be a segment that is interested in just getting the 8% coupon. There's going to be a segment of people that say, I want to learn. I want to be Nathan when I grow up. Like, they're listening to this and like, I want to be Nathan. So go listen to his podcast. What's the name again?
The Real Estate Notes Show.
The Real Estate Notes Show, right? So go check that out.
Yeah.
And as always, good luck on your income flip journey, everybody listening, right? The idea is to create a life by design versus a life by default. And with that, Nathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.